I call this August 15th meeting of the Paducah Planning and Zoning Commission to order and ask that you stand with us as we say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Excuse me. Thank you, Mr. Irwin. Call the roll, please.
Benberry.
Here.
Bradford.
Here.
Morrison.
Here.
Schramke.
Here.
Shadle.
Here.
Wade.
Here.
Chair Cornelius.
Here. Mr. Morrison, you have the minutes motion.
Yes, ma'am, I do. I move that the reading of the minutes for August 1st, 2016 be waived and that the minutes of said meeting as prepared by the secretary be approved as written.
Second.
Second by Wade. Any corrections, additions? Call the roll, please.
Morrison.
Aye.
Schramke.
Aye.
Shadle.
Aye.
Wade.
Aye.
Benberry.
Aye.
Bradford.
Aye.
Chair Cornelius.
Aye. Ms. Schramke, you have the Lynn Grove property public hearing.
I do. I move that a resolution entitled, "A Resolution Constituting the Final Report of the Paducah Planning Commission on the Proposed Closing of North 29th Street between Trimble Street and Clay Street and between Clay Street and Harrison Street" be adopted.
Second.
Second by Ben Berry. This is a public hearing, and so we welcome any who would like to come and speak concerning the property.
I'm just the owner, so we will, just want to come here and answer any questions that y'all may have or any concerns. So I'm just here to help y'all with the information.
Would you like to ask your question, Mr. Wade?
Thank you for coming.
Should I give some background? Or?
That would be great.
This 29th Street, this section of it, was originally dedicated back when the development was built. It really acts as an alley. It's the rear entrance into the backs of these structures. Right now, it ends up on two adjacent streets. I think they're wanting to control access better into the site, and for maintenance purposes, are requesting to close it. They've gone through engineering public works. They've recommended approval of the closure.
Steve, if I read the staff report correctly, so it will be closed, but it will continue to be used by the apartments? Yeah?
Yes, it will be more in the, if you want to look at it like a private drive into the rear of those structures.
So the upkeep will be done by
Yes.
that gentleman?
I'm Brian White, by the way, and that's the future owner sitting over there, so 20 years if you got a problem, talk to her. No, the alley right now, it allows a lot of foot traffic, a lot of vehicular traffic cutting in from the Country Hearth and the Family Dollar and all that stuff just coming through. We've got kids that play in the back, so there's a lot of people that play in the backyard. Plus, with it being city property, we can't put a lot of money into it because it's not ours. And there's potholes, it's the drainage issues. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that needs to be done. But one thing I'm looking at is with our aged streets on California and Coronado, since those are privately owned, I'm looking to close off from Trimble and Harrison, create parking behind, so that way they have access to their units from behind, and it alleviates the traffic and the parking on our smaller streets. They're not as wide as the regular streets because 1952, that's what they put in. The concrete doesn't last that long, so we're going to have to eventually do that. And in the future, what I'm looking also to do is to have a centralized dumpster behind these units so everybody can put their trash in one dumpster, because with the city dump trucks or the city trash trucks that's coming on the concrete, and that concrete again was not made for the type of weight that these trucks carry week in and week out. So it just kind of helps us. It may even be better on the city because they don't have to pick up. I mean, we've got 72 units over there. So we've got 72 possible in the future people with trash cans. So if we can have a few dump sites or whatever that they have a common dumpster, then it'd be a lot easier, a lot faster, and I'd say a lot cleaner because you don't have everybody with a bunch of trash cans everywhere. So
It appears from this plat that there are no other adjacent property owners bordering the street to be closed, only
Just me.
Lynn Grove properties?
Yeah, and that's kind of the strange thing is the property itself is just completely cut in half by the street. It's non-functional, doesn't do anything. And honestly, we're wanting to put kind of a building out there, not only for an additional office, but also storage for our mowers, for our equipment, supplies, or any extra windows or doors that we have. But the only place we can put it would be right in the middle of the road, the North 29th Street. So in order to do this and kind of help us out, because we're using one of our units as an office now, that would free up a three-bedroom, free up $650 a month on rent that we could possibly rent, and just kind of make it a little bit more, a little cleaner property, and just truly turn this place around, because from what we bought it, man, I mean, it's been a nightmare, but I've got great ideas for this place, and I think it's gonna be worth it. So,
So let me see if I understand. This is a street that was platted originally, but was never really developed. It's just been
Yes, ma'am.
more like an alley.
yeah, it's an alley, it's got grass and gravel, and honestly, I don't know the last time the city's come in and done anything with it. So there's potholes. That's the only speed restriction items that we have in there. People don't fly through because we got so many potholes. So that's a bonus. But for the most part, we're just trying to, one thing we are looking to do is right there on Trimble Street is continue the ditch across. So that way, one, it's not encouraging somebody to jump across or to walk across, and it would reduce vehicular traffic. We're also putting up private property signs, no soliciting, no trespassing, kind of stuff like that to let people know this is just not a walk-through property, because our tenants, one thing we are working towards to possibly have a 55-plus community there, because it's all one level, washer dryer hookups. I mean, it's perfect. Anywhere in the city, you're going to have to find a unit upstairs or steps of some sort. So that's what we're trying to develop and encourage, and we want to make sure we have a safe environment before we start throwing that idea out there.
Any other questions, comments?
I drove by it in California Court, that's right by Trimble Street, next to the Family Dollar, and there was an elderly lady trying to navigate in one of those
The
walk-around
walkers.
things. And I took a picture of it. It's a pothole probably 6 or 8 inches deep, and I had to help her get out of it. She went to the Family Dollar trying to get back over there, and just, I mean, it was almost impossible to get that thing through the holes. I mean, it's over like a culvert in the ditch, a concrete culvert where the water runs through. But the connection, I think the streets inside of the area are private property, and then the outside is city. The connection is just deteriorated completely. So,
Well, that's kind of been the struggle with me and the city is, where does ours stop and where does theirs begin? And that's the thing. The more they talk, the more it seems like I'm responsible for pretty much everything up to the Family Dollar. It seems like I've got to take care of the streets and everything else, and I just want to make sure that I know before I start putting money into something that it is mine, but also that we go through the proper channels to get it engineered right. And if those entrances are mine, then of course we have to have permits and everything else to make sure that we do it to the standard that the city sets for ingress and egress, and make sure it's good. But right now we're at 53% occupancy. So it's better than the 35 when we bought it. Actually, it was 60 when we bought it, but we had to get rid of everybody. So I'm sure I've dealt with the police department quite a bit since then, to make sure that we get the right people in, and get the right people out. So right now, we're fighting with a limited budget, people just not wanting to pay and trying to get a different clientele in there. And that's just kind of the hard part, because you can't rent unless you renovate. And to renovate, you got to spend money, and then that leaves money somewhere else that doesn't get it. And right now, the private streets are kind of killing us. So that's what we're trying to decide, is where we need to put our money next, and but the more we spend and the less units we have to rent. It's a double-edged sword, so. But I personally think it's a whole lot better than when we bought it a year ago, actually a year ago, July. So the grass is actually mowed now, so.
Mr. Reverend, I know there are provisions related to counties where if a road is abandoned, the title reverts to the previous owner, which if the previous owner is far back, then it's whoever's the successor does it. Do you know if that's the same for the city? Where, what I'm getting at is, would there be any additional filings or documentation required other than just an abandonment?
They do it quickly.
Okay.
City would give a quick claim deed to him for the property.
So this has been on my to-do list since we bought it, so I'm glad this is finally something physical to hold on to and see that it's actually going, so.
Any other questions, comments?
Are they actually in, when it says down the middle, track A and track B, track C and D, are the two on either side different tracks?
What happens
Say it would
is,
have to be.
by state statute, that's the process that has to happen. At some point in the future, if he wants to combine those with
Right.
adjacent tracks, another waiver of subdivision plat will have to be submitted, abolishing the interior property lines to create one.
Okay, and we're not doing anything with that tonight.
It's just a closure.
No.
That's all I wanted to confirm.
Any other comments? Thank you, we
You're
appreciate
very
it.
welcome. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Call the roll, please.
Yes, ma'am. Schramke,
Aye.
Shadle,
Aye.
Wade,
Aye.
Benberry,
Aye.
Bradford,
Aye.
Morrison,
Aye.
Chair Casilius.
Aye. If there's no other business to come before the commission tonight, we stand adjourned.